YouTube. I get asked a lot of questions about ways to turbo your kit car, the best things to do, the best parts to put on it and things like that. And turbo kit cars are a brilliant opportunity to annoy everyone on the road because your power to weight is the same as a supercar. Fuck off, you prick. What a dickhead. When I bought my kit car, it had a C-Tech engine in it. It was 130 horsepower. I put some throttle bodies on, 170 horsepower. Did a few track days, really enjoyed it, didn't break, and then this happened. As you can see, I got my arse well and truly handed to me by a Jaguar F-Type with the V8 engine. The BHP was there, but I didn't have enough torque, and as the video showed, it disappeared. I spent most of the rest of that weekend on Google, reading up about the various options that were available to me to improve the power of my car. I knew I wanted an engine that was rear-wheel drive to start with. I didn't want to convert my Z-Tech to a turbo. I wanted a gearbox that was all meant to be. So I started looking at 200SXs. The 1.8 engine that I have at the time was significantly cheaper than the 2 litre and still is, to be fair. That was the option I went for, and I started ordering bits. 3 months later, the naturally aspirated Z-Tech had gone and I had a turbo engine in its place. Now the purpose of this video isn't to try and tell you what engine you should put in your car, because the most common conversion to do now is the MX-5. It's a nice simple engine, you can put it in, throw a turbo on it and away you go for not much money. That's personal opinion, it's car related, so I'm not going to get into that. But what I do want to look at is some of the things that you do need to consider when you're going to turbo your kit car, or if you buy a turbo kit car that's already done. So cooling, that's the first thing you need to look at. Turbos obviously are oil cooled, most are water cooled, so your oil and water temperatures are going to rise. So water temperatures, they're the biggest issue with the kit car. You can't get a massive radiator on the front of the kit car, there's just no room for it. I bought a cheap radiator when I had my kit car, it was an eBay special. It didn't work very well, so I replaced it with a Mishimoto version of the same radiator. It's brilliant, I've not had any major overheating problems since. It's what people use in America when they've got 500 horsepower Civics and things, so you shouldn't have any issues with that regard on your turbo kit car. It also has the same size and location outlets as the Polo radiator, which is what most kit cars come with originally. Another thing you need to consider, you won't be using any heater matrices. Your engines will have outlets for a heater matrix, so you need to make sure when you redo your water hoses that you don't route them incorrectly, which will cause hot spots and cause dead ends in your cooling. Oil temperatures will also rise as well, because your turbo will be oil cooled, and oil temperatures rising will also increase the temperatures of your water. So if you haven't already got one, I suggest you get an oil cooler. You don't want to go too big, but you do want an oil cooler to keep those temperatures down, which will hopefully keep your water temperatures fairly cool as well. I'd also recommend you get an oil temperature and an oil pressure gauge, because if your oil isn't doing what it's meant to, then your engine will die. Along with the decent radiator and an oil cooler, you also need to consider the airflow. Air will take whichever route is the quickest to pass through your engine bay. So once you have your radiator and intercooler in place, what you want to do is you want to block off the sides of the radiator and the intercooler, so that any air entering the nose cone can only go through the radiator and the intercooler. If you've got any gaps, the air will go through those gaps and you are not making the most of the air that's coming into the car. Kit car engine bays have a hole in the front, like most other cars, and then there's just a big box. The air all rushes in and it can't get anywhere. So what you need to do is make some holes to let the air that's coming in out. On my kit car, I've got 3 gill style panels down the side. I've got 5 holes in the top of the bonnet. I've got a bonnet scoop to let air in over the top of the engine to keep the coils cool. I've also got a scoop in the front nose cone which sends air directly to the oil cooler. When you're parked up, you can obviously see the heat rising out of these holes. I appreciate some people don't like holes and vents in their engine bay, but if you don't have any way of this air getting out, then you are just going to cook your engine. You need to let the air come in and go out as quickly as possible. As everyone knows, intercoolers are used to keep the air cool that goes into your engine. Obviously a turbo gets hot, so the air that it forces out gets warm, and you want cool air going into your engine. You want as big as you can physically fit on your car or in the nose cone. You need to make sure it's ducted correctly. A lot of people don't even have bodywork, they just stick an intercooler on the front of the car, which will work brilliantly. Some have it on the rear roll cage. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful ways to do it. Along with this, you also want a sensor monitoring the air temperature, the intake air temperatures, or AIT sensor. This will tell you if your temperatures are getting hot. If you've got a clever ECU, you should be able to use this sensor to alter and adjust your map, which in turn should prevent your engine running lean or getting hot or detting. So we've talked about how you can keep the engine cool and the best way to sort of monitor that and make it safe. You also want to be able to use the power. Kitcars are typically either an English axle, an Atlas axle, or an independent rear, using an MX-5 or a Sierra diff or even a Land Rover or BMW differential. If you haven't got a limited slip differential, then you should buy one before you put a turbo in. There's various different options here. You could go for a plate diff, you could go for a Quaife style diff. Do your research, decide which is best for your driving. The Quaife made a huge difference to my car. Even in first gear there's very little wheel spin, you just get a bit of axle tramp and then it's off. This is a £500 or £600 investment that you really should consider before you think about getting the turbo really. Your car now goes faster, so you need to make sure it can stop quicker. I run 4 pots with 280mm discs on the front of my car with a carbon Lorraine style metal or sintered pad. You won't be able to keep normal brakes or M16 brakes or X5 brakes. You will need 4 pots if you intend on stopping at any sort of decent rate. To give you an idea, going from a 170 brake Z-Tech engine to a 300 brake turbo engine, my speeds increased down the back straight at Blyton from 90 miles an hour to 117 miles an hour, which is a massive increase in speed. So you need a significant increase in braking power if you want to be able to stop. Another one people don't think about is suspension. Turbos add a lot of weight to your car, typically 35-40 kilograms maybe when you've got your intercooler on there. My engine swap added around 50 kilograms in total over the Z-Tech, so I needed a higher poundage springs on the front to compensate for the additional weight, and it makes sure that your suspension can deal with the added weight of the turbo and whatever you are putting on it. Another area you want to consider is fuel. Your turbo engine will use a lot more than a naturally aspirated engine, so you want to be looking at a 250 litre per hour fuel pump. The Bosch 044 is the most common one to choose here. It's a simple fix and forget. It's what's used in high powered race cars. It's the choice to go for. Along with needing a decent supply of fuel, you also need to be able to monitor the fuel. So fitting a wideband lambda sensor to the car will monitor the air fuel ratio. It'll tell you the ECU if you need more or less fuel, and it should hopefully stop you from melting things. I obviously melted my previous engine. I didn't have a lambda sensor. The ECU didn't have the facility to talk to a lambda sensor, and it melted, and that was the end of that. These are a fairly cheap add-on. Even if your ECU won't deal with a lambda sensor, you can still buy one, fit one, get a gauge and monitor the air fuel ratio yourself. When you've got a turbo kit car, you'll probably find that your reliability suffers. Unless you've paid £30,000 plus for a Westfield factory EcoBoost or something like that. When you're pushing the limits of turbos and cooling systems and fueling systems and driving it hard in a tiny car, then things will break. If you want a reliable kit car, then I wouldn't suggest pushing your turbo engine much past 250, 260 horsepower. As soon as I went past this, that's when I started getting issues with reliability. and that's when things started breaking. They are brilliant fun. I don't think there's anything that compares to the rush of it. There's certainly not much you can get on four wheels that will go as fast as a turbo kit car for the money. If you want to annoy supercars in your box section made death trap, then what better way to do it than to fit a turbo to your kit car? And the more turbo kit cars there are, the better as far as I'm concerned. If you've got any further comments or questions, obviously add them to the section below. If you like and subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. There'll be lots more videos coming. The next video will be me mapping my turbo kit car. You'll obviously have to like and subscribe and watch that video to see how we got on. See you soon.